Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley speaking to you from Washington, D.C., and this is our program being taped on the 12th of December. It's 12/12 today, and the first broadcast is going to be on the 13th, and that means St. Lucy's Day. St. Lucy's Day, the 13th of December. Last week we had the St. Nicholas Day program. Now we have St. Lucy's Day, big holiday in Italy, but also in Scandinavia, above all. Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, Finland, Norway, all these places. Big holiday and a very welcome one at that. But now we have to deal with the ugly realities where we are here in Washington, D.C. And this gets us to the cromnibus, a budget crisis which came, for the average person, I would venture to say, more or less out of nowhere. And we are still on the edge of a shutdown of the U.S. federal government. And equally, or perhaps more important for the long run, we're now beginning to sort out the various factions. And we're going to see in action who is a leader, who is strong, who is good, who's a traitor, who's a hypocrite, who's a faker. And you're going to see who it is. And I have to tell you, we're very critical of Elizabeth Warren. We have got her number. She's a faker. And her leadership is not any good. And you're going to see just in the past couple of days how much we've seen of this. So the cromnibus combines a continuing resolution, in other words, a simple extension of last year's budget into this year or to the coming year, fiscal year, the fiscal year we're now in, which is FY 15. We're already in it. We have been since October 1st. And an omnibus spending bill. So it's a catch-all, grab bag, everything goes in there together on the basis of a continuing resolution. And what Boehner and the Republicans were offering was a cromnibus that would take the government to September 30th, to the end of FY 15, with the exception of the Homeland Security budget. The Republicans, in their frenzy for self-destruction, their racist, bigoted, xenophobic excesses, they want to be able to have a fight about the Obama halt to deportations. They want to stage that fight sometime in February, right, around St. Valentine's Day, I would guess, or something like that. So therefore, that funding would run out. And of course, it's ridiculous, right? These xenophobes, they're supposed to be so worried about terrorism and so worried about the border, and they're going to cut the funding to that. But that's the way it works, and that's fine. Hurry them fast to their doom. Remember that the strategic outlook here is the difference between Republicans and Democrats is that the Republican Party needs to be destroyed first. It needs to be destroyed in place, based on the fact that it's demographically doomed, ideologically doomed too, ideologically, demographically doomed, and the Democratic Party needs to be split. And the split we're talking about is a split between open, blatant Wall Street Democrats on the one hand, and on the other hand, this confused gaggle of people who would say that they're from the New Deal, or they're pro-labor, or they're populist, or they're anti-Wall Street, or Occupy maybe even. But, of course, they have no program and they have no direction. They don't know what they're doing. And this is what it's up to us to provide. And, of course, if you're sick of Democrats at any point, you should try the Tax Wall Street Party, because that is the catalytic force that is going to get these developments going. Now, it turned out that in the 1,600 pages of this rather large bill, there are a couple of extremely offensive things, and above all, the idea that a provision of the Dodd-Frank bill is going to be rolled back. The Dodd-Frank bill, of course, notable for its pathetic weakness, toothlessness, and its many, many years of enactment. In other words, the provisions don't kick in right away. It takes quite a few years for them to kick in. So the idea now is that under the new Kromnibus, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is going to reacquire liability to bail out zombie banks that have engaged in derivatives speculation. Probably credit default swaps, but not only. So the FDIC will be on the hook for the losses of these banks. Citibank and JP Morgan Chase are prominently mentioned. Goldman Sachs also. They're all considered banks now since 2008. And so the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation will have to pay if Citibank blows itself up with derivative speculation and credit default swaps. FDIC has to pay. What does that mean? FDIC has some money in it. Sure, it has a trust fund. That comes from a fee that is paid by the banks, but that will be exhausted very quickly when the tremendous loss multiplying exponential loss power of these derivatives kicks in. So at that point, the Congress will have to provide money from the general revenue of the United States. So this is a whole new bailout. And the difference with this one is this is a bailout that would not have to be voted in the moment of the panic, when I think a lot of people would say, no, not a second time, no more bailouts for you. You go down, zombie bankers, and you hedge fund hyenas too. This would be automatic because it would be put in place earlier, i.e. now, if they get their way. So this essentially takes us back. It throws out all the lessons of the 2008 crash, which was, of course, a world derivatives panic. Not so much subprime mortgages. That's trivial. World derivatives, 1 to 2 quadrillion, 1,000 trillion of derivatives in notional value were going down. So this became known, and a lot of bad feeling then resulted. Elizabeth Warren came forward. This is the new senator from Massachusetts. We've been following her closely. And said that she urged the people in the House of Representatives, the Democrats there, to vote against it because this was a provision written by Citibank lobbyists, and we have got reports that Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase was calling individual members of Congress, cajoling them, bribing them, in effect, right? You want to become a JP Morgan Chase executive after your time in office? Well, that's what we can imagine is going through their heads, if not out of Dimon's mouth. So that was then put up for a vote last night, and it passed by 6 or 7 votes. Let us also point to the fact that Obama and Biden made telephone calls to Democratic members of the House of Representatives telling them, vote for this bill. And I think he got a total of 57 Democrats to vote for the bill. Boehner, the reactionary leader, lost 67 members of his own caucus. This is partly Tea Party and other extreme right-wing fanatics in the Republican Party didn't want to vote for this for other reasons. A lot of them said it didn't defund Obamacare. It didn't attack immediately on the xenophobic anti-immigrant front, other problems that they had with it. Obviously, these Republicans did not object to the idea of opening the door wide to Citibank and the other zombie banks getting their hands into the FDIC. And that's funny because that was one of the original issues of the Tea Party. The Tea Party was supposed to be anti-bailout. This time, back in a minute. So the Kromnibus passed last night on its bipartisan vote. It was Pelosi joining with Elizabeth Warren, telling the Democratic members, in effect, I'm not voting for it, neither should you. Notice, however, Pelosi did not invoke a full Democratic whipping operation saying, don't vote for this, the party demands that you not vote for it. She didn't go into action And it turned out that although Pelosi voted against it, Steny Hoyer voted for it. Clyburn voted for it. Congressman Delaney here in the Washington suburbs, a financier, he voted for it. Marcy Kaptur voted for it. That's really distasteful. And apparently the way that this provision, reopening the federal coffers to the hands of the zombie bankers, that was put in there by Barbara Mikulski of Maryland, right? The supposed blue collar. She says she's the only blue collar member of the Senate. Well, this is not very blue, is it, Mikulski? So that leaves a very, very bad taste. So Obama, Biden saying vote for it. Pelosi saying I'm not voting for it. So it did pass. And the 67 votes that Boehner lost were almost made up by the 57 Democrats that he gained. So everybody's saying, oh, what a profile in courage by Elizabeth Warren. Well, I'm afraid not. Just a couple of little things first. When she came on, I guess, MSNBC or one of these cable programs, and to explain what was happening, she was asked, who put this in there? And she said, the Republicans. Well, yeah. It's a joint negotiation. There are House appropriators, but there are Senate appropriators too. And the head of the Senate Appropriations Committee has been Barbara Mikulski. So without Mikulski, it couldn't have gotten in there. And we also have to point to a monstrous group of 8 Democrats. We find out about this in Mother Jones back in April of 2013. Democrats are undermining Wall Street reform too. And I won't go through all the different things that they talk about, but the ringleader of this seems to be Jim Himes, Himes. Then we have Congresswoman Fudge and the following names: Carney, Moore, Maloney, Peters, McIntyre, and Scott. This is the effete 8. And all of them have come forward in some way or other proposing to water down the already pathetically weak barriers erected by Dodd-Frank, if it ever comes into effect, because it's being fought at every stage and will undoubtedly now be sabotaged further by these Republicans. So Elizabeth Warren fudged it by saying that the Republicans were the only ones who put it in. It's a combination of Mikulski and then this other elite, the effete 8 group. And now, of course, what do? Elizabeth Warren is like saying, I'll be leading you from behind. House Dems, you go into the breach, but I'm back here in the Senate. What I'm demanding, is a filibuster. I want to see Elizabeth Warren get up there and match or exceed little Rand Paul or Ted Cruz or any other reactionary Republican who's been standing up there on whatever issues they had. I want to see Elizabeth Warren stand up there, be like that woman in the Texas legislature who stood up all night to filibuster some bill, I guess it was an abortion bill in that case, that she didn't like. Let's see Elizabeth Warren get in there and fight and be acrimonious, not bipartisan, but acrimonious, the kind of thing that some of her petty bourgeois, good government, prim supporters don't like. And I want to see Bernie Sanders with her. I want to see the team of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders get in there, and then I want to see them bring in people like Sherrod Brown, that wonderful populist, he says, from Ohio, or Merkley from Oregon. Those guys are supposedly big enemies of derivatives. Let's see it. Stand up and filibuster. Fight, damn you. And, of course, if they don't, if Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and these others do not, then we realize what we're dealing with here, that this is a dog and pony show, that this is a right, or in this case, the left wing of the Hillary Clinton campaign. We saw in the previous cycle, how Romney needed a left wing man, and a right-wing man. The right-wing man happened to be little Ron Paul, the leprechaun. But on the left wing, it was that guy Huntsman. So he had blockers going for him. He had wingmen on both sides. And I think Hillary has that now in the form of Elizabeth Warren. So don't give your heart to Elizabeth Warren. Let's see her fight. Now, in terms of what we are dealing with here, we're going to be very critical of Elizabeth Warren because we have to be. First of all, MoveOn.org. MoveOn.org, notoriously coming from the Soros orbit, has now had their online referendum, and they're going to be backing Elizabeth Warren. So I say, if the campaign for Elizabeth Warren in New Hampshire and other places, which she still disavows, right? She says this is not her. This is other people, self-starters that she can't control, that she doesn't coordinate with. If MoveOn.org provides her campaign in New Hampshire, I can guarantee you who's going to control her administration if she ever became president. And that person is Soros. George Soros would control an Elizabeth Warren administration. Reminds me a little bit of Zephyr Teachout in New York State in the gubernatorial race, just the previous month now. Zephyr Teachout was officially on the board, the advisory board of the Soros group of foundations. So that doesn't look too good. Don't give your heart away to that. And we've also seen how Elizabeth Warren started with a promising proposal to finance, not to refinance, I'm afraid, but just to finance for 1 year student loans at 0.75% through the discount window of the Federal Reserve. And she dropped that like a hot potato when the bigwigs of the Democratic Party said no, cease and desist. Notice now that Elizabeth Warren is technically in the Democratic Senate leadership with Harry Reid and Durbin and Schumer and Patty Murray and the rest of them. So this is a very dubious proposition. Don't go down that road. We'll be back in a minute. The third segment of World Crisis Radio, and once again it's St. Lucy's Day, the 13th of December. We're recording on the 12th. All right, so here's what we want. Let's have the litmus test for Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, both of them presidential candidates, and that guy Jim Webb. He can also join in, right? He's not in the Senate anymore, but he can support them. He can come and hold their coat. He can come on the Senate floor. He's an ex-senator. Here's what we want. We want a filibuster. Filibuster the Cromnibus unless and until the FDIC open door to be looted by Citibank and zombie banks, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, and, of course, J.P. Morgan. We want that filibustered. That's for you, Elizabeth Warren, and you, Bernie Sanders. We also want Elizabeth Warren to stop pretending that the Republicans are the only ones doing this stuff. How about Himes, Fudge, Carney, Moore, Maloney, Scott, Peters, McIntyre, Wall Street Democrats, the absolute essence of Wall Street Democrats. And then here's the other problem. The rhetoric from the Democrats is, oh, Wall Street zombie bankers, you can go ahead and speculate with credit default swaps if you want to, but you can't do it with public FDIC insurance. Yeah, okay, but credit default swaps are derivatives. They're illegal. And here's why. A credit default swap is one of two things. It's either gambling or it's insurance. If it's gambling, then the zombie bank that puts them out, or hedge fund hyena, that zombie institution is essentially functioning as a gambling casino, but it doesn't have the right, it doesn't have the license to be a gambling casino. Same thing on the insurance side. If it's insurance, well, you don't have the prerequisites to be an insurance company. You're not registered. You don't have reinsurance. You don't have any of that. And the people who are dealing in this have no insurable interest. You can't simply take out, in the old practice, you can't be at an arm's length from afar and say, I'm going to put a $1 million life insurance policy on that guy. You can't do that unless you're a member of the family or some insurable interest. Maybe he's a key man in your corporation. That's perhaps possible. But you get the idea. Credit default swaps are illegal. It's either gambling or it's insurance, and the companies that put them out are neither one. So that's important. Now, of course, campaign finance, right? We are not such fools here as to think you could build a mass movement under depression conditions based on campaign finance reform. But this, of course, is an evil, right? We're against it. They've multiplied by 10 the amount that a fat cat can give to the Democratic or Republican national committees. I guess it's only them. I wonder if you can give that to the Tax Wall Street Party. We'll be interested to know. It goes from about 32,400 to 10 times that, 324,000. So that's obviously not good. A couple of other things is that pensions are undermined. If you have a multi-sponsor pension that is covered by the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, you're going to get clipped. And if certain circumstances obtain, then you're really going to get clipped under this thing. So there's lots of bad stuff in there. We would focus for the moment on closing the door to a future bailout. Notice that in this debate, there were no Republicans standing up there saying, we demand that Citibank be able to get insured through FDIC when they do speculation, right? If they speculate and they win, then they keep the super profits. But if they lose, the taxpayers have to pay. No Republicans would come out in the light of day and argue in favor. The Republican line was, this is the compromise. You have to stick to the compromise. And then we go back. Mikulski, how could you? Himes, he had put this forward as a standalone bill. It was called To Help Farmers. To Help Farmers. Okay, these are Wall Street Democrats. And again, the Mikulski blue-collar pedigree means absolutely nothing. So, of course, what we were calling for, if you look at my Twitter from yesterday, it's vote no, vote no, vote no, vote no in this turkey. Don't vote for it. If you vote against it, you force the Republicans to embrace it and hasten their destruction as a political party. So this is the hypocrisy of the Republicans. Boehner says, I want these provisions for Wall Street, but I'm going to force the Democrats to vote for them. I'm sorry, Democrats, that's where you got to say no. And again, if you're sick of the Democratic Party, and aren't we all, try the Tax Wall Street Party, and you will be, I think, on the whole, much happier. So this is going forward. We're operating right now, as I speak to you, on a 48-hour continuing resolution. It just pushes everything into Friday to Saturday. The Senate is doing a defense bill. Then they're going to come up to this $1 trillion cromnibus. And we want to see some fighting. And we don't want to see Elizabeth Warren saying, you House members go out there and get mowed down, but I'm going to stay here in my comfortable, clubby Senate, right, where everything is so traditional and such an old boy atmosphere. All right. So that's the first thing. And, of course, from the Tax Wall Street Party point of view, ban credit default swaps, outlaw them with severe penalties, outlaw and ban collateralized debt obligations. Even the Goldman Sachs guy had conceded that might be a good idea. And tax all derivatives, all with a 1% Wall Street sales tax. So you want to see an answer, right, a programmatic policy that would get you out of this. We have it. All that Elizabeth Warren is offering is a little bit of a fake fight to at least delay it, but that's not enough. So also be aware of what I'm telling you. Elizabeth Warren is looking more and more like the left wing of a Hillary campaign, where she's out there to make sure that no challenge emerges from that vast area of the Democratic Party, which is to the left of Hillary Clinton, the warmonger, the Wall Street Democrat par excellence. Now, let us look at the world strategic situation. Let's look at Syria, because I think we've had the picture that we've been putting forward in the last couple of months is now being confirmed heavily. You will notice if you go to tarpley.net that I've been attacking General Allen, the Allen Petraeus clique, who are demanding the bombing of Assad. That was the headline on December 7th. On the November 29th, we had ISIS czar Allen ousts Hagel from the Pentagon, and the policy, once again, the McCain policy, don't bomb ISIS, bomb Assad, right? Spare the real terrorists and bomb an existing government that's actually fighting on your side. The November 22nd, we were registering the Brisbane no, right? When Obama was asked, are you doing a policy review on bombing Assad? And the one-word answer from Obama was no. And that freaked out quite a few neocons and humanitarian bombers. And then we were back to November 15th, post-election war coup. GOP chairman Ed Royce of House Foreign Affairs touts a policy review, which is the latest Kerry, Allen, McCain, Petraeus effort to bomb Assad and save ISIS. So I've been trying to point to this, and it's still going on. Still going on. Back in a minute. Back to World Crisis Radio, Webster Tarpley in Washington, D.C. So look, the Petraeus-Allen clique. It's Allen, the ISIS czar, in the State Department with his assistant, not Igor, but McGurk. That's the inside part. And then outside is General Petraeus, backed up by the multi-billionaire Kravis. And that's one of your main dangers in the world today. And this is not, they're not giving up, right? They've been repudiated, but they're still fighting. And again, the idea is they want to bomb Assad. Now, the term that's being that I'm hearing more and more for this is the Special Operations Community. The Special Operations Community wants boots on the ground. Well, who might the Special Operations Community be? The former head of the Joint Special Operations Command, General Petraeus, General Betrayus, as he is rightly known. Now, here's the interesting thing. General Betrayus and Allen have taken over the Washington Post, the news articles, and the editorial page. Let's just go back to a week ago today, Friday, December 5th, 2014, with this wonderful headline on the editorial page: Stabilizing Syria, a safe zone could help in fighting the Islamic State and the Assad regime. December 5th. This is an article inspired by Allen and or Petraeus. These are interchangeable. Under pressure from allies, the Obama administration appears to be creeping towards a correction of its strategy in Syria. And it's about time, says the Washington Post. Turkey is not happy. Obama has been feckless. He's been counting on moderate Syrian forces, but he hasn't been slamming Assad. And the fact that he's not bombing Assad, that policy has prompted Turkey to withhold vital cooperation and, more seriously, has risked the destruction of U.S. allies, in other words, the Free Syrian Army on the ground. This is a colossal lie. Turkey has a policy of supporting terrorism. Erdogan, Davutoglu, they support terrorism. They're from the Muslim Brotherhood, and so are the control mechanisms for ISIS. So that's who you're dealing with. And it didn't start as a reaction to anything Obama did do or didn't do. Turkey decided that they were going to start the new Ottoman Empire, and therefore they wanted to destabilize Syria. So Here we find now, reading on in this editorial from a week ago, Turkey, with whom senior U.S. officials have been negotiating the plan, could substantially step up its contributions to the war. Now, guess who senior U.S. officials means? It's Allen and McGurk. The idea is a safe zone, a border strip, like the Sudetenland. Go and read my article about that. The border strip would include Kobane, and it would include deterring Syrian government aircraft from entering the area and shielding them from bombing raids. You get the idea. And, of course, we know that a no-fly zone anywhere means a bombing campaign to destroy the Syrian Air Force everywhere. That was a week ago. Now, today, it's the 12th of December, as we're taping. David Ignatius. Now, this is a slimy insider. He's very often on the Diane Rehm Show weekly review. He's very often on the network blab shows on Sunday morning. David Ignatius, CIA State Department insider, speaking tube, inspired by them. It's called Fitting Together a Middle East Strategy. And what do we read? Let's start the article. General John Allen must sometimes feel as if he's navigating a maze as he organizes the coalition to defeat the Islamic State. Iran is a silent partner in Iraq, but a potential adversary in Syria and elsewhere, and on and on. When Allen took the job in September, Islamic State fighters had overrun much of Iraq and Syria, and Obama was worried. Allen's effort didn't look very good when he started, but of course the indefatigable general is making progress. The fundamental contradictions of Obama's policy remain. Allen is a former commander of coalition forces in Afghanistan and one of the architects of the Sunni awakening in Iraq. Special forces, huh? He was a good choice for this evolving ad hoc effort, but he's carrying a heavy rucksack, as General David Petraeus liked to say, and that has all kinds of pieces of strategy in it. So on and on, the Allen, they don't quite give him a personality cult on the same magnitude as Petraeus, but he's going in that direction. So the idea is he is acting as the lawyer, the ambassador, the representative, the envoy of who? Of Erdogan and Davutoglu of Turkey, who are rotten pro-terrorist elements, of Qatar, and generally of the Muslim Brotherhood. So this is bad news, and Obama is certainly right to mistrust these people. Don't follow anything these people say. And of course, the information background on this stuff, we had it already. December 1st, Karen DeYoung, Washington Post. U.S. considers opening new front against Islamic State to create a safe zone in Syria. And as we read down, Turkish officials and General John Allen, the administration's chief envoy to the U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic State, have assessed that the Free Syrian Army can marshal sufficient trained forces to gradually move eastward into this zone. But right now it's going to be U.S. aircraft and Turkish special forces. So you get the idea. It's a no-fly zone, meaning the entirety of Syria gets clobbered. You can say that this is sort of Obama tricked and betrayed Russia in regard to Libya back in March of 2011. This time, if Obama says yes to this, he's going to be tricked by Allen McGurk and Petraeus, among others. And, of course, we know Kerry and Samantha Power brought them in to facilitate the path towards aggression. Now, we also have another interesting article here. It's a Lebanese publication. Let's see if we can find it. It's the, let's see. The word in the White House is de-escalation. So this is Tony Badran, B-A-D-R-A-N, 4th of December. This is a blog called Now, N-O-W, period. Okay? Word in the White House is de-escalation. And the point of this is that the people around Obama are now realizing that Obama uncompromisingly rejects any confrontation with Assad, so that all of these leaks about the no-fly zone, the safe zone, the cooperation with Turkey, and all these, that Turkey is really, they really feel like they've been let down. Pro-terrorists out there, not happy. The leaked proposal is a non-starter. This article says, among other things, we had on Monday, December 1st, we had 3 reports, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and Bloomberg, that the U.S. and Turkey are considering the establishment of a safe zone on the Turkish-Syrian border, meaning in Syria, act of war. The reported plan was wonderful cooperation of the U.S. and Turkey, and the Turks have long demanded a no-fly zone and a buffer zone. But the proposal, getting nowhere, serves as yet another public White House announcement to Iran and the U.S. that the Assad regime is off limits. Good. Keep it off limits. One war at a time. ISIS first. Lay off Assad. He's helping you. Back in a minute. Welcome to the second hour of World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Let me hasten to add concerning that course, the political economy of the American system, that will be held here in Washington, D.C. sometime in the middle of January, hoping for MLK weekend, but we'll let you know as soon as we have anything specific. We're trying to line up the logistics. So stay tuned. Stay tuned to this broadcast. Stay tuned to my Twitter feed, and we will post the notice on tarpley.net. But now, the attention of the world is on Michigan, Detroit in particular, because the end of the the so-called alleged end of the bankruptcy process. In reality, the Snyder, Upton, and Orr clique has been carrying out this killer austerity. The pensions in Detroit have been looted. Tremendous austerity has been imposed. And when we look to the other side of Michigan, the western face, we find this same political machine in crisis, right? We've got Bob Woolley, the county commissioner there in St. Joseph, near Benton Harbor. He's been jailed for embezzlement. He'll have to stand trial for stealing money from an old senior center, an old folks home. Sheriff Paul Bailey narrowly escaped jail. Unfortunately, he did escape it, but he had a close call. And, we want to hear from the person at the center of all this, and that's Reverend Edward Pinkney, who is facing now his sentencing hearing this coming Monday. Welcome, Reverend. Tell us the situation.
Webster, thank you so much, but I have breaking news.
Go ahead.
Listen to this. Here's what happened. Right now, the judge and the prosecutor are working together because we dropped a bomb on them on yesterday. One of the jurors was personal friends, not only with the clerk, but she also knew the prosecutor.
Whoa.
Number 2, which is we asked her, there was a witness list, and we asked her specifically, did she know anybody on that list? She said nothing. We asked her 3 times. Then we asked her specifically, did she know Sharon Tyler? And she was numb. She didn't say a mumbling word. Then, here's the question. We asked her, did she have any connection to Sharon Tyler? She said no. We found them on Facebook as friends. Also, we found them for this girl, Gail Freeland, is also the chairperson for the flag parade that they have every single year. They've had it for 10 years. And Sharon Tyler has been in that parade. And she's been there, so she's saying that there is no connection. She's out of her mind. Number 3, when they had the beauty pageant, Sharon Tyler was asked to come on the stage by Gail Freeland. It gets even better. The sheriff and the undersheriff are both on the board of the Blossom Time. And then we find out that the sheriff's daughter and the juror is Facebook friends. And it gets even better. They all working together. During the parade, they have 15 to 20 different floats the police department has in this parade. We asked her specifically, do you have any connection with the police department? Any at all? Do you know any of them? She didn't say a mumbling word. So now the judge and the prosecutor are trying to figure out how they trying to get. She lied so she can be on the jury, so she can help her friend Sharon Tyler convict me. And she had 2 friends on that juror. One named Alan Paskinski, and I think the other lady was small, but we also doing an investigation of 4 other jurors who we believe was planted on that jury by Barron County. So we are in the midst of, we don't know how they're going to handle it, but they're trying right now as we talk right now. That courthouse is in an uproar because they could not believe it's a possibility that Reverend Edward Pinkney will wiggle out of this mess. Not only are we demanding a new trial, we demanded they drop all charges because they knew it. They knew what they was doing. So I'm really excited, Webster. This is, a matter of fact, News 57 is at my house right now, ready to interview me. Everybody now done heard about it across the state, and everybody's excited. And believe me, we are in an uproar.
All right, Reverend, let's just, if we can go through this a little bit. You're saying that this was perjury by Gail Freeland when she was questioned during, I guess they call it the voir dire, right? When you get on the jury, right?
Absolutely.
So she was asked these questions about, do you have personal connections to these people on the prosecution side? And she lied repeatedly.
Either side. Didn't make no difference which side it was on. But
right.
She didn't say a mumbling word. What she did was she knew what she was doing. And also we found out that she might be friends with Michael Sepik too. We're still doing an investigation. We're still trying to find out more on 2 other jurors, Jill Olson and a guy named Scott Rose. We know that they know something about the law enforcement, that we know that much about them, but we don't have all the evidence to support like we got. We got about 25 sheets on Gail Freeland information, and it's important that we expose them for what they really are. I don't know what they might try to do on Monday, but right now a word at the courthouse that they scrambling, trying to figure out how they're going to around this. So I'm excited, Webster.
That is blockbuster news. That essentially, the idea being that there was jury tampering, jury packing, that the jury was suborned, all highly illegal.
Absolutely, and they knew better, and they knew it all the time. It wasn't a surprise to them. The surprise that we found out about it. So we are on top of it. Also, we filed a motion for a direct verdict once again because there was absolutely no evidence that could have convicted me of this crime.
A directed verdict of not guilty.
That's right. So we're doing the things that need to be done. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to, if they still tried to sentence me on Monday. I wouldn't be shocked about it. But but I know how they operate. You see what I'm saying? Right now, we got them just where we want them.
But now, so we're saying that...
I'm happy to be in this position, Webster.
Gail Freeland is the personal friend of the prosecutor, Mike Sepik. Is that it?
We don't know that much yet. We know that she's a friend of Sharon Tyler. That's what we do know.
Okay.
Yeah, we do know that, and that's enough to get us a new trial.
Okay. Reverend, do we have a press release that has all of this spelled out?
You will get one before the night's over with.
Okay.
Also, I'm going to send you the brief also, Webster, so you can put it on your website so you know everything that I know.
Great. I would like to put it on Twitter so people listening to the broadcast, Reverend Pinkney had to go through that relatively quickly. If you want to see all of that laid out in writing, go to Webster G. Tarpley Twitter feed, and then indeed to tarpley.net as you listen to this broadcast on Saturday the 13th of December. That is a blockbuster, and I guess you've got all these other names of people who were on the jury, the Jill Olsons, Scott Rhodes, and others.
Scott Rhodes. They had Alan Paskinsky, who's also from the same area that Gail Freeland is from. But she admitted she knew him from the parade. But
okay, hang on, Reverend. We're gonna carry over into the next segment, at least briefly. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley in Washington. We have a few more minutes with Reverend Pinkney now. He's just told us this blockbuster news that the jury, which convicted him of forgery for attempting to organize a recall election for the Whirlpool-controlled mayor of Benton Harbor, Michigan, that jury has been extensively tampered with, and it also includes suborning and perjury by jurors during the voir dire, during the questioning about the selection of the jury, that a lot of them were essentially guilty of perjury. And that's going to come out then on Monday, the 15th of December, in the sentencing, or not, as we would hope, right? That there would be a directed verdict of not guilty. The whole thing would be overturned and there'd be no sentencing. Reverend, just repeat now for people how they can be a part of this, how they can help you.
Those of you, and we do need finances to get this thing going. I would love for about 5 people to send me $500, and they can go to bhbanco.org. That's bhbanco.org. We really, really need your support. Or you can mail a check to Banco, BANCO, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. Or you can call me at home at 269-925-0001. This is some very, very exciting news. We know what they're going to be trying to do. They're going to be up all week trying to stop us. But I understand that what they're trying to do.
And is there anything to add to Bob Woolley? Is he still in jail? Did he get out on bail?
No, he had a hearing this morning. And now, like I told you before, it's going to be about $1 million when it's over with. They said 150 earlier. Now it's up to 300,000. It's going to be close to $1 million for sure.
That he embezzled from the senior center.
That he embezzled, and they're trying to cover up for him. Matter of fact, Mike Sepik, the prosecutor, is a personal friend of this guy. And Sheriff Bailey. They're all friends. They're always at that meeting when they gave Paul Bailey that standing ovation when he told them that they had convicted me. Wow.
And you've got a number of affidavits about that, too. The
Absolutely.
Republican
in reference to that.
Pep rally about We Got Pinkney. And then Sheriff Paul Bailey was almost jailed for contempt of court, correct?
He was almost jailed, but unfortunately he wiggled out of it. Barron County politics, that's what I call it.
Okay. Well,
right.
then.
And please encourage people to donate because I really, really need it. And even if I do lose, I'm going to have to get this appeal, and I got to have resources. I can't fight without resources.
Absolutely. So that's what everybody should do. And again, it's bhbanco.org. and that's the quickest way to send a contribution, right? You've got a PayPal on there.
Yes.
All right, Reverend.
All right.
We're going to be in touch with you soon, and good luck on Monday. You've got plenty of
we're going to do everything we can get. We're putting it in the hands of the Lord. Let him deal with these demons.
Okay. Good for you, Reverend. Keep fighting always, as I'm sure you will.
All right, then.
All right. So thanks to Reverend Pinkney. And now, not really changing the theme, we're just going to get a picture of some of the mobilization, in particular by people from the United Front Against Austerity and the Tax Wall Street Party, who have been, above all, attempting to get letters sent to the judge in all this, Judge Schrock, the judge in the case. And that's actually not too late. There's still probably a chance to send something in if you haven't done so, and you've got time now. But let's get the overview. Let's get Daniela Walls, the chairwoman of the Tax Wall Street Party. Welcome, Daniela.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm here at the Tax Wall Street Party, and the Tax Wall Street Party and the UFAA have been mobilizing. This week's examples are too many, but I'm going to try to hit some highlights of what we've done for Reverend Pinkney. There's some watershed moments this week. I'm sure that Pinkney already went into some detail, but I didn't get to hear you guys. So if you could please correct me if any of my figures are off or facts, because there's so much intensity and speed that these numbers keep changing, and these city officials are falling like dominoes, and I can't keep track. So there's details in all of these cases that change moment by moment. So correct me, but we've really stirred the pot on this. We're really starting to get now there is national and international attention on this. Our 25 locals in states and our continuous presence at the Ferguson protests, they are seriously using this time to help Pinkney while also making lasting alliances with civil rights organizations in their areas. The locals have carved out time for themselves to give presentations that outline demands with flyers that read, "What do we want?" This includes summer jobs for black youth in their states, a $15 minimum wage, better community schools, 30 million jobs financed by the Fed, 0% student loans, and that has all gotten a great reception, and the leaders want to incorporate these demands into the Martin Luther King marches. In San Antonio, that's one of the largest. There's going to be 100,000 people at the Martin Luther King March. So they're carving out a space where we can hold up flyers with these demands. In Benton Harbor, the white officials, and like I said, I hope I'm not going over what you guys have already talked about. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the white officials responsible for arresting Pinkney are now being arrested. And the county commissioner, Bob Wobley, was he sent to jail? Did you find out? Is he in jail?
He spent a couple of nights in jail, but he's now facing charges. The amount embezzled is up to $300,000. You just go ahead though.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
Bailey essentially got off. No jail time for Bailey.
Well, yeah, the judge is being soft, right? So the county commissioner Wooley or Wobley, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Wooley.
Is from this Upton machine, and he was caught embezzling. And then, like we said, nobody knows the exact amount. But between the Tax Wall Street Party and Reverend Banco in this white racist company town, and I've been dealing with the people in this town, and you've never seen anything like it. It's not a good description of America. But we are sending, between Banco and the Tax Wall Street, we are sending corrupt white officials to jail in a company town, and this is almost unheard of in the world of activist politics, recently at least, proving that we are an elite group of activists. This is not the usual world of MoveOn.org where they tell you to sign a petition or those types of similar things. We've proved that we can now penetrate the most corrupt company town, and we get results. And as you say, Webster, we are not a group of Aristotelian hacks. We are leaders. So, is that the music on me, Webster?
Hang on. We'll carry you over. We'll give you a few more minutes in the next segment. We'll be back on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Let's continue to get more of this report from Daniela Walls, the chairwoman of the Tax Wall Street Party. Daniela, we give you about 4 or 5 minutes more to continue the picture on the mobilization worldwide in favor of Pinkney.
Okay, so officials that were responsible for Pinkney's arrest over the recall petitions are now being found out not only to be corrupt but criminal. sheriff didn't get any jail time, but we're not looking. We're fighting the war, as Pinkney said, not the battle. So we didn't get his 90 days, but that doesn't mean that in legal terms, this means that this is not speculation anymore. This is now in the court, and Judge Chirac was forced to bring these people in for sentencing, so it's on the public record. Unlike Pinkney, like he was soft on the sheriff, I think we said. So the sheriff who arrested Pinkney was arrested for contempt of court, specifically for an incident where he exclaimed at a public gathering, "We got Pinkney." This incident points to a very key aspect in the case which proves that Pinkney is a victim of and being sentenced in what the lawyers are calling a lynch mob atmosphere. Sheriff Bailey got up at a Republican town hall meeting several weeks ago and exclaimed, "We got Pinkney." There was a standing ovation from an all-white Republican crowd, and it was a standing ovation. So this looked and felt witnesses to be no less than a lynch mob. The sheriff has now proved that he was not a neutral public servant, which is what Pinkney has been trying to tell us all along, but now we have proof. It's in the court. This exclamation from the sheriff and the ensuing standing ovation is no longer hearsay, but it's public record. So Pinkney and a few activists have started with them signing affidavits. Maybe we can skip through this because I think Pinkney might have covered this stuff with you. I was going to cover it, but
what we need to wrap up is how about the letters? How many letters? How many from overseas? How many from big wigs?
Okay, well, let's start with that. So we've got letters from 10 countries and 25 states that are coming in. If you are in a foreign country, this does not mean you can't write a letter. If you are in a state, now there's a couple days left. What you can do is you can fax them. I found the fax number at 269. This is I'll repeat it. This is the Berrien County Judge Chirac's fax number. So you put at the top, "Attention Judge Chirac." The fax number is 269-982-8643. 269-982-8643. And when you fax your letter, of course, the same as before when you wrote the letter, Pinkney needs a copy. Pinkney has a fax machine at his house. So what you need to do is call his home number, 269, I think we all know it by now, 925-0001. Call him and say, "Pinkney, I'm about to send a fax." He'll convert his phone and you can send your faxes through. If you have multiple letters, do them all at once because you know he doesn't have much time and he's a busy man. So if you are in a foreign country, there is no reason you cannot fax a letter. It is just as good as a hard copy at this point. So Chris Reese at our New York local got a Reuters article syndicated this week that appeared in countless online news, magazine. They have a website for their news.
It's a worldwide news service, one of the probably the biggest in the world.
Right. So CBS, CBN, ABS, USA. So this quote where he talks about systemic racism, and he wrote, he says, they quote him saying, "If people are worried about the criminal justice system and racial issues, Reverend Pinkney is the perfect case." So that's bringing a lot of tension. Thank you, Chris Reese. And there's just so much going on, Webster. I could go on and on. Let's cut it there.
I think we had WPFW radio here in Washington, D.C. this morning.
Pinkney did that this morning. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to hear it. And the activists on the ground are reporting that the black community, there's a change, Webster. The black community sees Reverend Pinkney as the real deal. They're saying to our activists that Al Sharpton and his ilk are fakers. They're sick of them. They're looking for something better than phony leadership. Those guys like Sharpton have led them off cliffs long enough. And I think that we're beginning to see something different on the ground than we saw in Occupy and other race mobilizations, where people are really just saying we want long-term solutions. We want to stop these quixotic battles and specific battles. We want to fight the war, and most importantly, now at this stage, people are looking for solutions, and this is the change we're seeing. And this is where it's key for our activists to be there with materials, ready to help lead, guide, and be sympathetic to what's happening, and also address systemic racism as well as economics. But we are there for both, and it's an important time for us to be there because across the board, in white struggles too, we're all sick of no solutions, and people are looking for a way to all mobilize behind something we can get together on. So the activists are mobilizing to attend the December 15th trial for Pinkney and the rally. We're going to have a rally on the 15th and 16th. I don't know if Pinkney told you how to get
the rally where?
There's going to be a rally in front of the courthouse in downtown on the 15th. I will post the exact address on freepinkney.wordpress.com, all of our Facebook pages, and all of our websites, Against Austerity, taxwallstreetparty.org. Or you can call Reverend Pinkney. His phone's always on, 269-925-0001. Give him a call and say, how do I get to the rallies? There's buses.
Okay.
There's a whole mobilization we're trying to figure out right now from Chicago and from surrounding areas. And that's where. Do you want me to keep going? I mean, I can keep going forever.
I think that's a pretty good overview. All right, thank you. Daniela Walls, the chairwoman of the Tax Wall Street Party, leading this mobilization.
Okay, going to get back to work. Give Pinkney a call right now. Okay, talk to you. Bye-bye.
We'll see you again next week.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.
To get the post hoc summary. Okay. So there's the situation. And again, if you didn't get all the details of how that jury has been tampered with and all that perjury during the voir dire, please check my Twitter feed and then Tarpley.net. Now let's get back to the strategic stuff. Look, we've talked about the dangers of the Allen McGurk Petraeus clique starting something in Syria. This always goes together with the Ukraine-Russia situation. And here the danger is also acute. Here, however, the Anglo-Americans seem to have gotten the idea that their sanctions are going to bring Russia to its knees. In particular, if we take a look at the London Economist of the 22nd to the 28th of November, and the wounded bear, Russia's wounded economy and the dangers for the rest of the world. The wounded bear tracking bloody paw prints over a taiga Siberian snowscape. This is the gloating of the Anglo-Americans. So the idea is that they've got Putin. They can soften him up for a color revolution. They can do that with the oil price. The oil price has gone below 58 already today, if not lower. So that obviously is a pinch on the Russian budget, but I think this is completely fatuous. The capability of Russia to resist these things is immense. Certainly, I think, by all odds, greater than any country in the world, right? Nobody can be truly autarkical, but Russia has tremendous resources in all of these areas: food, raw materials, population, energy, and so forth. So this is unrealistic. And also, just look at Putin's foreign policy successes. If you look at Putin's Twitter account today, he's been visiting Modi in India. Previously, it was China with the $400 billion deal for natural gas, 2 separate large-scale pipelines from Siberia into China, negotiating with Iran to build nuclear reactors there, and now with India, 10 nuclear reactors will be built, and India and Russia will cooperate on Arctic development in the Kara Sea, the Novaya Zemlya, biggest oil field discovery of recent years. There is no peak oil, and here's one of the proofs. Back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Once again, that course in the political economy of the American system, slated now, we hope, for Washington, D.C. sometime around the middle of January. Stay tuned. We'll tell you when we get a venue. If you know of any venues, don't hesitate. Come forward. But that's it for the moment, probably at the Martin Luther King weekend. Putin and Modi. This is the wave of the future. The friendship of Russia and India, well, times change, but that friendship doesn't change. There's one of these Twitter. So these are tweets by Modi that have been retweeted by Putin. Notice the common denominator, modern nuclear energy. Much of the world, India, China, Russia, the British, on and on, have not given up nuclear energy. The more pessimistic countries, Germany, of course, for the moment has, but that can always be revised. Generally speaking, if you don't have modern nuclear power, you're on your way to becoming ethnographic material. You're going to be dominated by somebody else. You better learn a foreign language to take orders in. These are the realities of power. Forget about what the average environmentalists like or doesn't like. This is irrelevant. We're talking about the rivalry of large states. And if you don't have this, you're nowhere. And that means fourth generation, high temperature, pebble bed nuclear reactors. And Russia will be helping India, Iran, and others with this. What we need here, of course, is an infrastructure-led recovery. And what can we say? We can't even build a pipeline, right? We have 750,000 miles of pipeline already, but somehow this next one is the end of the world. I just don't see it. Infrastructure. Under Franklin D. Roosevelt, it was WPA, Works Progress Administration. PWA, the WPA, of course, Harry Hopkins. PWA, Public Works Administration, the curmudgeon, Harold Ickes. TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, and a certain amount of CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps. That's the path to a recovery. Otherwise, the United States has already been passed by China just in the last couple of months in two categories or two ways of measuring the economy. The U.S. will be left behind in the dust. You want to see that happen? If not, you better get modern energy and modern infrastructure, and your left-wing mushhead prejudices will simply not be acceptable. Now, what else can we say? Concerning the torture report, I gave comments on Press TV. This report, first of all, obviously I reject the fairy tales about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Ramzi bin al-Shib, and 9/11, right? That's not how 9/11 came about. You want to know how it did come about? I wrote a book about it. Buy the book, 9/11 Synthetic Terror, Made in USA. This report does not cover the Pentagon, doesn't have anything about Abu Ghraib. There's nothing about renditions, what went on in various places like Poland or other countries. There are no prosecutions. Not Bush, not Cheney, not Addington, not Tenet, not Rumsfeld, or any of these people. Nobody gets prosecuted, and a lot of them get promoted. There were no firings. Brennan gets to be still head of the CIA. Comey gets to be head of the FBI. And there are no reform proposals. Well, John F. Kennedy had a reform proposal for the CIA. Break it in 1,000 pieces. And I think that's the way to go. Scalia, chiming in with Cheney, helpfully points out the Constitution has nothing against torture. Wrong again, Scalia. Cruel and unusual punishments are not allowed. I would also point out there's a lot of literature now that says we did these things. We did not. There is no collective guilt. Not for the U.S., not for Germany, not for Russia, not for anybody, not Japan. I don't care. China, there is no collective guilt. The responsibility for actions rests with the people who carry out those actions. So don't let Fox TV 24 or Zero Dark 30 or other fascist movies blunt your sensitivities here. These are violations of the Geneva Convention. And if you violate the Geneva Convention, the one thing you can be damn sure of is the other guy will violate the Geneva Convention against you, and you will not have a leg to stand on. Now, as I mentioned before, oil went below 58. Junk bonds, what they call the high yield sector, junk bonds are now in crisis. There is more and more talk of deflation. I turned on Bloomberg surveillance this morning, and the guy in the bow tie is telling you to read a book about deflation. Iron ore is way down. Commodity Research Bureau down. You get the idea. We've talked about how this works with deflation. This is now gathering steam, and it's spilling over from oil into other raw materials, into stocks and into bonds. That could be a world economic contraction coming in. The other thing, political instability. We've seen the Democrats are split. Pelosi fights Obama. Republicans split. Tea Party fights Boehner. Let's look at other countries. In Italy right now, today, there's a general strike. The CGIL union and its metalworker branch, the FIOM, as well as the UIL and the UILM metalworkers, that's a general strike against the Renzi government of the Democratic Party, the Social Democrats, the neo-communists, whatever you want to call them, over his job bill. Renzi has an American-style job bill, hire and fire, no job security, and the whole country is shut down. However, Renzi, showing his contempt for the labor movement, actually obtained an injunction to prevent the railroad workers from joining the strike, an injunction. So the prime minister of supposedly pro-labor PD party uses the repressive power of the state to prevent people from taking part in the strike. Now, that is obviously the end of the honeymoon for Renzi. If we look at Italy right now, all the parties have split or will split. The Berlusconi party split into two parts last year. We're left with Berlusconi, Damaged Goods, and Alfano. We've also got this Democratic Party, the CGIL, especially in places like Emilia-Romagna, Toscana, are splitting from Renzi. This is the group around Bersani, Bindi, and D'Alema. It's a congeries, but the one thing they say is no to Renzi. So that's another split. And the Grillo party, for you utopians out there who thought that Grillo was the answer to something. Grillo is chasing after xenophobic anti-immigrant votes. He's falling all over himself with Farage at the European level, and he's trying to catch up with the Northern League, right? The xenophobic anti-immigrant Northern League. So that's what a lot of leftists were betting on. Grillo is dissolving himself into an orgy of expulsions. 2 have been expelled. Another 20 will follow. So that thing is smashing itself into a million pieces. The answer to all this is, if you're in Europe, you need to demand that the European Central Bank, Draghi, cough up, I would say, between 5 and 8 trillion. Let's make it a nice round 8 trillion for the European Union. That's got to be for infrastructure. That's got to be to build the things that Grillo doesn't like. High-speed rail, electricity grids, ports, canals, infrastructure of all kinds. We need an infrastructure-led world economic recovery to fight deflation. QE will not do it. It's got to be infrastructure. And we'll see you next week on World Crisis Radio.